And welcome back. Now, the Department of Social Development has called on all COVID-19 social relief of distress grant recipients to reapply, as it will now be paid out under a new legislative regulation. The ministry says that the new framework has additional qualifying and assessment criteria, but unions say their biggest concern is that the income threshold for eligibility has now been lowered from 595 Rand to 350. And joining us via Zoom now to further explain what all of this means is Sassa Spokesperson Paseka Letsatsi. Good to see you again, Paseka. Thanks for speaking to us here on Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina, and thanks for having us.
Paseka, let's start by just explaining the new changes and, of course, why it is that people, firstly, need to reapply, and secondly, the additional criteria.
No, thanks, Sakina. I think basically what we were using was to use the national state of disaster to disburse the 350 to deserving beneficiaries. However, we know that the national state of disaster regime came to an end, and we had to then use the Social Assistance Act. And basically, the Social Assistance Act would then have other requirements. We need to make sure that we satisfy a particular legislative regime. But we do encourage people to make an application. And what we know, Sakina, is that there is an engagement, a continuous engagement between both the Department of Social Development and stakeholders. And we think that if there are other things which people would want to raise policy-wise, because the mandate of the South African Social Security Agency is to administer the distribution of social grants, those particular issues would be raised with relevant authorities. And I'm confident from where I am that the department is willing to engage, and if there has to be amendments, the department will definitely do that.
So, Paseka, with regard to some of the new gazetted regulations, what exactly are those, and also the assessment criteria that will be used?
The assessment criteria which will be used, Sakina, because we have to do the maze test. We know that people have raised issues around how the money was, in terms of the qualifying criteria, how it was reduced from 570 to 350. We also know that people raised issues that when they upload the information, they need to upload the information of their parents. And that in some instances, some people raised issues. And we said that is meant to deal with two things in terms of uploading the names or the details of your parents. One, if I have to defraud the state, or if I have to use your ID, Sakina, but I would not have the details of your parents. But secondly, people feel uncomfortable in terms of uploading that particular information. We have made it very clear that they can basically pass it. It won't affect them negatively.
All right.
But second, yes.
Sorry, Paseka, I thought you had concluded that point. You said secondly?
Secondly, Sakina, there are certain things that we as an organization are compelled to do. For an example, people were talking about the WhatsApp number line and the website. And basically, we said we will do everything in our power to make sure that people access those particular platforms. We know that our systems are up and ready. We have, as we speak now, Sakina, there's about 7 million people who have already made an application. We also want to encourage people before month end that they must make sure that they do the application so that they can be paid for the month of April.
Okay, so a few questions already. I'm going to try and just cluster them as they come through. So the one question is around people whose applications are still pending or were waiting for reconsideration from the previous grants before the new legislation. So what's happened to that? Does it just fall away?
We can assure each and every person, Sakina, who made an appeal that they will definitely be paid. There were some administrative matters, Sakina, at the background, which we need to make sure that we make sure that they are in line with the legislation. For example, we needed to make sure that there's an agreement between us and the banks, because if you make an appeal, we need to make sure that there are certain things that we need to comply with, especially the POPI Act. If we engage the banks will tell you that we cannot give you an information of an individual. We'll be violating the legislation. However, we think we are getting very closer to each other with the banks and other stakeholders to make sure that those who made an appeal are paid. And I can assure you now, Sakina, that each and every individual who appealed and qualifies will definitely be paid. That thing is not going to fall off.
All right. So anyone who has an application that still says pending, does that mean that you will attend to those queries?
We will definitely attend to those queries, Sakina. And I think I can assure you that perhaps we may need to have, even if it's a minute or two in the next 2 weeks, I will definitely give you an update in terms of that, because I know as of yesterday that we're very close in terms of understanding each other with the banks.
All right. Paseka, I think the most important thing here is that people desperately need these 350 Rand grants. So what do they do in order to get, the quickest possible assistance? Because some of the queries coming through here speak of waiting since August 2021, for example. This one from Gift says they haven't paid an application, gives the reference number from August 2021, and the application status still remains pending. So this is a mother of two who's unemployed. Where can she go to get that service expedited for her?
Sakina, people have a platform that they can be in touch with us in terms of our toll-free number. I know that because of the highest volume of numbers which makes an inquiry, you might find that at some point you have to wait. But we are just appealing to people that they must be patient with that toll-free number, because in any case, Sakina, we are dealing with volumes and volumes. We have tried to make sure that there's an added capacity in the call center so that they can then be able to respond to as many people as possible. But we are appealing to people that they must be patient in case they want to be in touch with us. We know that there can be frustrations sometimes, but that little bit of patience, because that line is a hotline, Sakina, we pay for it. So if people can be patient, they'll definitely go through, and they can then be able to make an inquiry. They will get a very reliable customer care official who can be able to give an update in terms of where the application is.
The other big problem, Paseka, seems to be around UIF and people having their applications declined or, pending because it is said that they are on the UIF database and therefore they can't receive the grant. The last time you said to us, people need to ensure from the UIF side that they are cleared, but they say that they are being told to go back to Sassa. So people can ill afford this back and forth. So what is the solution to that?
No, true, Sakina. We can't be taking people from pillar to post, especially if we are dealing with the most vulnerable sector of our society. But Sakina, unfortunately, we have a limitation as the South African Social Security Agency. Hence, our mandate is to administer the distribution of social grants and any other whatever that we need. We have to make sure that we go to relevant government departments or entities to be able to give us that information. We cannot, if we are trying to bounce the information with Department of Home Affairs, and Home Affairs says you do not exist. As an organization, we cannot bypass that and distribute a grant to you. We will definitely be breaking the law. Hence, we have these government departments or entities who are able to help us with the information. For an example, Sakin, we cannot, when we bounce the information with NSFAS, and we find out you are a beneficiary of NSFAS, and as an organization, we differ and agree and continue to pay you, we will definitely be violating the same law that we are supposed to be respecting. So we have an engagement, Sakina, and this one I know for sure it's happening with all these government entities which are helping us. The UIF, NSFAS, Home Affairs, and so forth. We do have an engagement with them so that we make it very clear so that people understand that for you, if you have been declined, and the reason is that you appear on the UIF database or there's a problem with your ID number and so on. These are the processes which you need to follow. And UIF, for example, has committed that they will definitely help us with that particular matter. But if people are experiencing problem, they need to make sure that they are in touch with us. But as long as your name, Sakina, appears on that database of our sister departments, there is no way in which you can bypass it and disperse the 350. I'm sure you know very well that we will be violating the law if we do that.
Final one, and this is a question from one of our viewers. It says, I would like to ask, when is Sassa going to pay the money into our accounts? Because since we reapplied, it says pending, and it's already end of the month, and we are hungry.
No, not true, Sakina. All that I can confirm is that all those people, and I think people must not be confused with this one, all those people that have applied for April will definitely be paid for April. We are just dealing with a very little administrative matter. And Sakina, we appeal for patience and we understand the situation of people who need to be paid at 350. Remember, for us to deal with the new regulations, we take about 6 months. But in this instance, we had to do everything within the short space of time. But we'll definitely make sure that each and every individual, once we agreed with all the stakeholders, is paid for April. We currently have more than 7 million people who have made an application, but we are working 24 hours around the clock to make sure that people get paid.
Paseka, that's where we have to leave it, unfortunately. But here's a final thought for you from Togozani, who says, Sakina, Sassa and the banks have been getting closer to each other since last year, October. So please, can you make sure that you guys seal that deal so that people can be helped, Paseka? People really desperate here on the ground. But thanks so much for your time this morning. We'll follow up again in a few weeks' time. Paseka Letsatsi is the spokesperson at Sassa. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Much more to get through in this.